I came home at nearly midnight, fingers numb from chopping, feet aching like hell, and clothes stinking of fryer grease. We'd just survived a double shift at the hotel. Half the staff had called in, the walk-in fridge had died, and the owner was breathing down my neck about food costs. I just wanted a shower, a quiet meal, maybe a little time with her. Instead, I opened the door and stepped into chaos. Our apartment looked like a tornado had touched down and only hit her side. Gear was everywhere: boots, water filters, protein bars, folded maps of Oregon, some weird-looking hammock contraption I couldn't identify. The sink was full of dishes I didn't make. The trash reeked. My cat hadn't been fed. And in the middle of it all, she stood barefoot in leggings and a sports bra, stuffing another fleece jacket into her backpack like she was on a mission to climb Everest. "Hey," I said, voice soft but audible over the rustling of zippers. "What's all this?" She didn't look up. "I told you. I'm going to that solo retreat upstate." I remembered something vague about a hiking thing, but I'd assumed she meant next weekend. She hadn't said it was tonight. I dropped my keys in the bowl, the sound sharp in the silence. "Okay." I didn't realize it was happening now. I just got off a nightmare shift. "Any chance you could pause for 5 minutes? Maybe we could eat something together?" She kept folding. "I already ate." "Okay," I said, trying not to sound disappointed. "Mind if I grab some leftovers or something? I'm starving." She sighed, a deep, theatrical kind of sigh, and finally paused long enough to glance up. "Your peace," she said, her tone flat, "isn't my concern right now." That was it. 6 words. No heat, no anger, just cold finality. "Your peace isn't my concern right now." I blinked at her, trying to absorb it. "Not sorry, babe, I'm in a rush. Not I'll make it up to you when I get back." Just that. She turned, buckled her pack, grabbed her phone, and stepped past me like I was furniture. "Back Monday," she tossed over her shoulder. "Don't forget to water the ficus." And then she was gone. The door clicked shut. The lock caught. The hallway light buzzed for a moment outside before everything stilled again. I stood there, alone in our living room, surrounded by her mess and my exhaustion. The only sound was the low hum of the fridge and the soft scraping of my cat's empty bowl as he pawed it, hoping someone would notice he hadn't been fed. I walked to the kitchen, found 2 dirty forks, a coffee mug with mold in the bottom, and a pan crusted with something burnt. I dropped them in the sink, turned on the water, and just stood there, watching the stream pour over a lump of congealed eggs. Her phrase echoed again. "Your peace isn't my concern right now." She hadn't said it to hurt me. That was the worst part. It wasn't a dig. It was just the truth, calm, emotionless, surgical. And somehow, that made it worse than any shouting match ever could. I looked around the apartment, our apartment, and realized I couldn't even tell where I ended and she began anymore. Her stuff was everywhere. Her projects, her rituals, her evolution. And me? I was just a ghost in the corner. A bank account. A warm body who took out the trash. I sat on the couch, pulled off my shoes, and stared at the space she'd just walked out of. That was when it hit me. I was in this relationship alone. She'd already left. She just hadn't moved out yet. And the worst part? I had funded the whole damn exit. I didn't sleep that night. Not really. I lay on the couch with a cold beer sweating on the coffee table, and the cat curled at my feet, just staring at nothing. My body ached in the way it only does after 15 hours on your feet, but I couldn't shut my mind off. "Your peace isn't my concern right now." That sentence kept echoing like a bad song stuck on repeat. 6 years together, and that was what she had to offer. I don't know when things shifted. Maybe it started when she joined that self-growth circle downtown, the one with the name that sounded like a kombucha brand, Rise Unfiltered. They were all about radical self-honor and internal expansion and unlearning emotional servitude, whatever that meant. At first, I thought it was good for her. She'd been in a rut, and the workshops seemed to light her up. She smiled more. She had energy. She talked about goals. Then the spending started. She needed to invest in her journey, she said. $1,000 for a 3-day retreat in Sedona. Another $800 for a wilderness survival course she never finished. $2,000 for a bamboo meditation pod that took up half our spare room and never once got used for actual meditation. I paid for all of it. Not just because I loved her. I did, but because I thought I was supporting growth. That's what partners do, right? You lift each other. Meanwhile, every time I asked for something simple, A night on the couch watching movies, a weekend where we both unplugged. Hell, even a dinner out that didn't involve quinoa or intentional silence. It turned into a thing. She'd roll her eyes, talk about how exhausted she was from doing the work, and suggest I journal about my neediness instead of projecting it. Once, I asked if she wanted to join me for my mom's birthday dinner. She sighed and said family obligations didn't align with her spiritual bandwidth. But somehow my paycheck did. Every month, I covered rent, groceries, car insurance, utilities. She posted Instagram stories from hiking trails with captions like, "Self-funded freedom tastes best," while wearing boots I bought and staying in lodges I reserved. She had built this narrative of independence, but it was all propped up by my labor, my overtime, my canceled nights out, my quiet swallowing of disappointment over and over. She wasn't just chasing freedom. She was chasing it on my dime. And I was the idiot handing her the map and packing her snacks. I don't know what made me open the laptop that night. I hadn't even showered yet. Still wearing my kitchen whites, crusted in flour and fryer oil. The apartment smelled like dried kale and incense, and I hadn't eaten anything but 2 staff rolls since noon. But something about sitting in that silence, her gone, her words still echoing, made my fingers move on their own. I opened Excel, clicked into a new spreadsheet, and titled it, "Things I Pay For." Just to get it out of my head, I told myself. Just curiosity. I started with the obvious. Rent, $1,850, my name on the lease. Groceries, roughly $500 per month, all on my card. Utilities, internet, water, gas, power, all automatic, all mine. Her car insurance, $87 per month. Her cell phone plan, $62. The Organic Essentials subscription box she swore helped her microbiome, $119. Then came the weirder stuff. The meditation pod, $2,100 plus delivery. That sound healing retreat in Big Sur, $1,200, plus I took time off to drive her to the bus terminal. The set of titanium trekking poles she had to have, $160. A GPS watch she barely wore, $340. Some raw cacao ceremonial kit that cost $90 and tasted like dirt. The list kept growing. I was halfway through January's bank statement before I realized my shoulders were tense and I hadn't blinked in too long. I clicked to the next tab and named it. Things I do. Her taxes every year. Grocery shopping. Cooking when we actually ate together. Driving her to the airport. Picking her up. Putting gas in her car. Quietly. Early in the mornings before work. Fixing the cabinet door when it broke. Installing her air purifier. Watering the plants. Cleaning the litter box. None of this had ever been asked of her. And honestly, I never thought to ask. It had all felt like part of the job, being a good partner. Being steady. Reliable. But now, seeing it all written down, I felt queasy. This wasn't just uneven. It wasn't a bad month or a stressful phase. It was a whole life, built like a seesaw with all the weight on one side, and me gritting my teeth trying to keep it balanced. She talked so much about being sovereign, about designing a life that was entirely her own. But the reality was staring me in the face. Her independence wasn't real. It was funded, subsidized, carried by me. And the more I looked at that spreadsheet, the more I realized something else. I wasn't bitter about doing the work. I was bitter that none of it had ever been acknowledged. Not once. Somewhere along the way, I'd stopped being a person. I was infrastructure, and I was done being invisible. She came back Sunday night, smelling like pine and patchouli, cheeks sunburned, eyes bright with post-retreat glow. She tossed her boots near the door and gave me a vague, "Hey, you good?" without stopping to hear the answer. Then she floated past me with her pack still on and disappeared into the bathroom for a long, steamy shower. I watched her go without saying much. Not angry, not bitter, just observing. That night, I began. No fight, no big speech, no storming around the apartment declaring war. Just small changes, quiet ones, the kind you don't notice until you trip over what's missing. First, the food box. The luxury organic delivery she insisted helped her gut reset every Tuesday gone. I logged in, hit cancel, and set the email confirmations to archive. The following Tuesday came and went. She didn't say anything. Maybe she thought it was a glitch. Then the herbalist newsletter she subscribed to, the one that billed my card monthly for sacred tincture bundles. I unsubscribed, flagged the sender as spam, and clicked Do Not Renew. One less $48 charge. One less email about moon cycles and lymphatic awakening. Then her car. For 3 years, I'd quietly taken it out in the mornings, every other Thursday, to top off the gas before my own shift started. She never asked. She just assumed it was magic. The car was always full. Until it wasn't. I skipped it that week. Drove straight to work. Let her figure it out. That same day, I logged into our joint account, the one she used like a magic well, and set up transaction alerts for anything over $20. If she noticed the pings on her phone, she didn't say a word. When Friday rolled around and her yoga hammock renewal got declined, she called me from the studio lobby. "Hey," she said, chewing gum and sounding annoyed. "My aerial class didn't go through. Was there an issue with the card?" I took a beat. Not long. Just enough to be clear. "Not sure," I said calmly. "Might want to check your billing setup." Silence on the other end. A pause that said she heard it. Not the words, but the shift. "Okay," she muttered. Weird. I didn't follow up. Didn't offer to fix it. She brushed it off. For now, I think she still believed it was a glitch. Or a late payment. Or the full moon messing with the Wi-Fi. Because that's how she lived. Assuming the world would keep spinning the way she needed, that everything underneath her was steady, silent, automatic. What she didn't know was that the foundation had started shifting. Brick by brick. Button by button. I wasn't punishing her. I wasn't being petty. I was just letting her experience what it was like to stand on her own. For real this time. It didn't take long. By the end of the second week, the cracks started showing. She opened the fridge one morning and just stood there, staring at the barren shelves like they'd personally betrayed her. "Did the grocery delivery forget to come?" she asked, squinting at an almost empty oat milk carton and half a bag of wilted spinach. I didn't look up from my coffee. I canceled it. There was a pause. She closed the fridge slowly, her face scrunching like she was processing the words in a different language. "Why?" I took a sip. We weren't eating half of it. It was a waste. She didn't argue, not out loud, but I could see her bristling. That was Monday. By Wednesday, the cold-pressed juice subscription failed to renew. Then her adaptogen supplements. Then the curated astrology-themed meal prep boxes she said supported her cycle. All gone. Quietly. Thursday morning, she came into the kitchen rubbing her temples, clutching her phone. "My brunch card got declined." I nodded. "That happens when funds are low." "Okay," she said slowly, scanning my face. "Did something change with the joint account?" I shrugged. "Not sure. Check your billing setup." She blinked at me like I'd grown a second head. "You always handle that stuff." "Not anymore," I said, gently but firmly. "Thought you might want more control over your own finances." She didn't answer, just stood there, chewing on her lower lip, like the gears in her head were jamming. That night, I came home to find her boiling pasta. Like actual pasta. From a box. She hadn't done that in years. Usually she rejected processed carbs, unless they came frozen in a gluten-free, anti-inflammatory meal plan. "How was your day?" I asked, setting down my bag. She stirred the pot without looking at me. "Stressful. A lot of surprise charges. And I missed yoga because the class pass didn't go through." I opened the cabinet, grabbed a glass. "Sorry to hear that." She turned to face me. "Did you cancel it?" I met her eyes. "You said your freedom was your priority. I figured your memberships should reflect that." That shut her up. She didn't yell, didn't slam anything. She just turned back to the pot, silent, like someone trying to solve a puzzle with half the pieces missing. Friday morning, she got a parking ticket. Her meter expired outside the co-op, where she used to stroll in and grab $18 jars of nut butter without thinking. She texted me a picture of the ticket with no caption. I didn't respond. Saturday, she called me from the checkout line at a cafe where she and her friends had gone for brunch. Her voice was shaky. "My card didn't work. Did you bring a backup?" "I know." I didn't think. Her voice cracked a little. "Can you just Venmo me real quick?" I paused, let her sit in the silence, then answered calmly. "You're capable. I'm sure you'll figure it out." I hung up, and for the first time, she felt what I'd been carrying for years, the weight of handling it all alone. The first call came from her sister, Liz. "Hey," she said, way too cheery. "How are you? Haven't talked in a while." I could already hear it coming. "I'm good, Liz. You?" "Oh, I'm okay," she said, her tone shifting into what she probably thought was subtle concern. "I just wanted to check in. Jenna said you've been kind of distant lately." Everything all right between you two? There it was. I leaned against the counter and stared out the kitchen window, watching the neighbors drag their trash cans to the curb. Yeah, everything's fine. Just taking some space to focus on myself. She laughed awkwardly. That's funny. She said the same thing. But she's been really overwhelmed lately. All this pressure. I think she could really use some support right now. I've supported her for 6 years, Liz, I said calmly. Financially, emotionally, logistically. That's kind of the problem. A pause. She didn't mention that. Yeah, she left that part out. That was the start of it. One by one, they trickled in. Her cousin from Seattle, her old college roommate, even her mom. Some called pretending it was casual. Others jumped straight into "we're worried about her." All of them had the same story. Jenna was stressed, confused, hurting. Why was I suddenly acting cold? But none of them seemed to know about the spreadsheet. None of them had heard about the yoga memberships or the $300 hiking boots or the way she told me my piece wasn't her concern. They didn't know I'd been covering her car insurance and cell plan for 4 years, or that I was the reason she could take time to grow while I worked double shifts in a busted hotel kitchen just to keep the lights on. So I told them, every single one, kindly, calmly, without bitterness, just the truth. I'm not punishing her, I explained to her mom. I'm just done playing the silent engine behind her self-care journey. I didn't sign up to be a ghost with a wallet. Her mom went quiet for a second. Well, I didn't realize you were doing all that. Yeah, I said. She never mentioned it. Some of the calls stopped after that. A few people texted me to say they respected my honesty and hoped we could work it out. One even apologized for jumping to conclusions. But others doubled down. Her friend Bree sent me a long message about how men always get uncomfortable when women step into their power. I didn't reply, because this wasn't about her power. It was about the fact that every inch of her so-called independence had been paid for by someone else, someone who hadn't felt seen in years. She wanted to rally people around her version of the story. What she didn't expect was that I finally had mine ready, too. And this time, I wasn't keeping quiet. It happened over breakfast. She made oatmeal. I could tell she was trying. Added cinnamon, almond slivers, even sliced up a banana the way I used to. She didn't eat it, though. Just pushed it around while I read the news on my phone and sipped my coffee. The silence stretched. Then she slammed her spoon down. This is insane, she said. You're being punitive. You're punishing me for having boundaries. I looked up slowly. Boundaries? Yes, she snapped. You didn't say a word. You just pulled the rug out from under me. You canceled everything, you're acting cold, and when I ask questions, you act like I'm crazy for noticing. That's emotional warfare. I set my mug down. No, that's called accountability. She scoffed. No, it's not. It's passive-aggressive. You're weaponizing logic. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because that phrase, weaponizing logic, was so perfectly absurd it didn't even feel real. You mean I'm using facts? I said. Clarity? Receipts? Her jaw clenched. I'm not playing a game here, I said, voice calm. You wanted to be independent. I finally let go of the rope. You didn't fall because I cut it. You fell because you were dangling from it for years without noticing who was holding the other end. She crossed her arms. I don't need to be rescued. You never did. But you did expect to be carried. That stunned her for a second. Then she launched into the greatest hits. I work on myself. I'm doing the internal labor. You don't understand the toll of emotional growth. You never supported my evolution. Jenna, I said, stopping her. I paid for your evolution. She froze. I paid for your retreats, your sound therapy, your gut reset kits. I did your taxes. I filled your gas tank. I bought your hiking gear. You called it self-reliance, but it was subsidized by me every step of the way. Her face flushed red. And when I asked for connection, you called it a distraction. When I came home exhausted and just wanted dinner or time or quiet, you rolled your eyes like I was derailing your enlightenment. She stood up, pacing now, arms flailing. This isn't fair. I never asked you to do all that. No, I said, you didn't. You expected it. Quietly, comfortably, without thanks or thought. Because somewhere along the way, I stopped being your partner and became your infrastructure. She opened her mouth, but nothing came out. Do you remember what you said before your last trip? I asked. The thing that cracked this open for me? She didn't respond. I stared straight at her. Your peace isn't my concern right now. She winced like I'd slapped her. I heard that, and something inside me just flipped. Because that was the moment I realized it was never about us. It was always about you. And I've been too tired and too quiet and too accommodating to say it out loud. She slowly sat back down, eyes glistening. I leaned forward. I'm not cutting you off. I'm not punishing you. But if this relationship is going to survive, the terms have to change. Her voice, finally, was barely above a whisper. What terms? No more silent labor. No more automatic support. No more fantasy that you built this life alone. If we stay together, it's got to be real, mutual, transparent, respectful. She nodded, slowly. Okay. And for the first time in a long time, I saw something in her eyes I hadn't seen in years. Not anger, not guilt, awareness. The shift wasn't loud. It didn't come with tears or fights or some dramatic walkout. It came with Craigslist listings. First, it was the titanium trekking poles, lightly used, great condition, $90 OBO. Then the top-of-the-line hiking boots, the portable dehydrator, the eco-sleep hammock she had once declared non-negotiable for her nervous system. All of it went up for sale in quiet batches over 2 weeks. I noticed the meditation pod disappeared from the guest room, too. I didn't ask where it went. She didn't tell me. The apartment got quieter, less cluttered, but also less smug. She stopped burning sage every morning. The weekly deliveries stopped. The Spotify playlist titled Goddess Rising wasn't echoing through the walls anymore. She did the dishes. Not just hers, all of them. She started cooking again, too. Nothing fancy. Mostly eggs, pasta, canned soup. But I watched her measure out water, crack eggs, wipe counters. All the things I used to do silently, while she journaled on the balcony about intentional solitude. Now she was living it. And for the first time, I think she understood how lonely independence can be when it's not padded by someone else's effort. Her friends stopped coming around as much. The group texts got quieter. Brunch invites disappeared. Apparently, when you can't split the bill 4 ways or pick up the tab just this once, you don't get added to the reservation. She didn't complain. Not out loud. But I caught her one night, sitting on the couch in silence, staring at her phone for a long time before finally locking it and walking away. The truth had arrived, not just in our relationship, but in her world. She had built an identity on the illusion of self-sufficiency, but without someone financing the scaffolding, it couldn't stand. And yet, she didn't fall apart. She didn't beg or retreat into performance. She just adjusted. Slowly. Imperfectly. She stopped using words like ascension and energetic flow. She said tired instead of misaligned. She said, I'm broke instead of, I'm protecting my vibrational currency. And somewhere in there, I saw the woman I used to know again. Not the curated version, not the persona, but the human underneath. The one who used to make fun of people who referred to granola as a spiritual experience. Her glow-up faded, but something better took its place. A quiet kind of honesty. One that, for the first time in years, made me think, maybe this isn't over yet. She waited until a Sunday. I had just finished scrubbing down the kitchen after trying out a new dish, something light, with lemon and roasted fennel. She came in quietly, no fanfare, no incense cloud trailing behind her. Her hair was pulled back, sleeves rolled up, and for the first time in months, she didn't look curated. She just looked present. Can we sit? She asked. I nodded. We sat across from each other at the table, the same one where she once mapped out her vision board with metallic markers and sacred mantras. She placed a folded sheet of paper in front of me. What's this? It's everything I've canceled, she said, her voice steady. The supplements, the subscriptions, the coaching app, the Goddess Circle Zooms, the hiking newsletter, all of it. Gone. I didn't say anything yet. I just listened. She went on. I also picked up the utility bill. The internet, too. I called the landlord and asked to have my name added to the lease. She took a breath. It's not much, but I needed to start somewhere. I looked down at the list. It was typed, organized, clear. It wasn't performative. It was practical. She leaned forward, elbows on the table. I didn't get it, she said. Not just what I said that night, though that was cruel, but the whole picture. I thought because I wasn't asking for money or demanding anything out loud, that I was self-sufficient. But I was just blind to everything you were doing without being asked. Her eyes met mine. You weren't background noise. You were the structure. I'm sorry I couldn't see that. I stayed quiet. Let her keep going. I used to think partnership meant being allowed to grow without compromise. But now I realize it's also about knowing when to stop growing and look across the table to make sure your partner's still standing there. She pointed to the corner of the room, where the ficus she once reminded me to water was now lush and thriving. I cleaned the whole apartment yesterday, she said. Laundry, floors, the litter box. I didn't expect a trophy. I just wanted to do my part. And she smiled a little. It felt honest, like I wasn't performing independence anymore. I was practicing it. I took a breath. Why now? Because I want something better, she said. Not the old dynamic. Not a return to how things were. I want to rebuild something we both believe in. I know I have to earn that. I looked at her for a long moment. Not the curated image. Not the lifestyle brand. Just her, tired, trying, learning. And for the first time in a long time, I believed she meant it. We didn't rush back into anything. No dramatic makeup speeches. No late-night embraces under lamplight. Just two people sitting down on a Tuesday night with mugs of tea, trying to figure out if we could actually do this, not perform partnership, not default into old rhythms, but rebuild from scratch. I need to lay out some terms, I told her. If we're going forward. She nodded. Okay. No more automatic support, I said. I'm not your silent engine anymore. If you need help, ask. No assumptions. Got it. No more casual dismissals, either. If I say I'm tired, or I'm stressed, or I need something from you, emotional or otherwise, that's not an inconvenience. It's part of the relationship. Same goes for you. Her eyes didn't flinch. I hear you. And I need transparency, I added. Not just about money, but effort. If we're building something equal, then we both have to see what's happening. No more invisible labor. No more secret spreadsheets. That made her smile, a small one, the kind you give when you know it's deserved. Agreed, she said. I want that too. We didn't sign a contract. We didn't hug it out. We finished our tea, cleaned up the cups together, and went to bed in the same room, but with separate blankets. Still cautious, still healing. And then, life began again. But this time, it looked different. She handled the groceries for the first month straight, clipping coupons, planning meals, learning the art of the grocery list. I fixed the leaky sink without complaint, and she thanked me with a homemade dinner and a hand on my back that lingered longer than it used to. We didn't split every bill down the middle, but we tracked everything in a shared spreadsheet. If I paid the water bill, she took care of the electric. When she needed to buy new work shoes, she used her own money. And she let me know in advance instead of just swiping the joint card and moving on. We both checked in weekly on Sundays. No judgment. Just, how are you doing? Is this still feeling fair? And slowly, the tone of the house changed. It wasn't about control. It was about clarity. 6 months later, we were still together. Not codependent. Not distant. Just aligned. We took turns cooking. We shared the laundry. If one of us needed a day alone, we said so. If one of us felt overwhelmed, we didn't bury it. We named it. She didn't talk about evolution anymore. She talked about growth, but the kind you water and tend to, together. She stopped chasing an identity and started showing up as herself. And me? I stopped feeling like a background character in my own life. I walked taller. I spoke more. I asked for what I needed without shame. And I felt, for the first time in a long time, like I lived in a home, not a stage. We weren't perfect, but we were honest. And that made all the difference.